A time in which we need to reorganize our lives is inevitable. We're going to encounter obstacles and problems and even defeats along our path through life that require a reshuffling of the cards, taking account of how you have been and how your life has been organized, what you've been doing, and seeing how those barriers and that structure are no longer suitable for the life that you have now. As an individual, it's always important to keep in mind that you're going to change because you're going to have to in order to become something more than you are. And the state of mind that created the problems that you're facing cannot be the one that produces the solutions that you find. Sometimes we get comfortable in certain habits, in certain ways of living, sometimes even in a job, or even on a spiritual path, or just in your daily routine, that those structures start to decay over time. They no longer become relevant or suitable for habitation for your soul, for you as an individual. And those structures around your body, that is routine, what you do, what you're doing, where you are, how you behave, those structures can be just as confining to a soul as the body itself. And those structures need to come down and be rebuilt. If you do not do that, if you do not take down those structures that you've made into your habits and what you rely upon, what you do each day, if those structures become obsolete and you don't take them down, then inevitably the world will. Karma will, or the grander computational force will, as you come to a more useful mode of being. And we get so attached to our comforts, smoking too much, drinking too much, eating too much, binge watching a show after work or school. Sometimes all these little things, well, sometimes they're not so little, but sometimes these things really get in the way in the long term. And then you get a wake-up call that's like, oh, phew, this is what I've been doing for years? Why have I been doing this for years? Don't I deserve more freedom than this, what I have now? Or the habits that I have now, the environment that I have now, the conditions of your social interaction have now, job, work, school, how you socialize. We often run away from this necessity of reshuffling our lives or taking down structures and building up new ones. We run away from it and dig deeper into the comforts that have allowed us to live in these obsolete structures. It's almost like somebody who is in a house that's being torn apart by a tornado, which I've been in something like that, going through the iPad and watching more and more funny clips while the structure around them is torn apart. This analogy works if you understand it as an analogy. Of course, very few people are that foolish to actually literally do that, but it is an analogy that works. Because the winds of change, time, society, the world, and even what your greater potential is, are going to tear down these structures that you create that are comfortable, that are familiar. Depression, sadness, anger, all these things also can be familiar and comfortable, not because they're pleasant, but because you're used to them. You know how to handle them, and you know who you are while you're in those emotional structures. The body that all these things compose. The emotional body. We have a spiritual energy body, we have a physical body, we have emotional body, we have a mind body, we have an intellect body. We don't need to go into all that, but even something that is painful or is not productive can become comfortable because we know it. there comes times in life where we need to be not comfortable. Reorganizing our life will shake the fabric of your emotional stability, probably your spiritual stability, economic stability, and even your social stability, who you're around. But the reorganization needs to happen so that the small sufferings that we're comfortable with don't become larger ones and then continue into cataclysm. And cataclysm can appear in many forms. Emotional breakdown, spiritual breakdown, ideological breakdown, breakdown of how much money you have. And I think that one that I would name for myself is I've been too reliant on alcohol. Instead of, I always thought that, moderation made sense. But when the evidence shows that you cannot moderate in the long term, when you're like, oh, I was like this, it's keeping me from doing that. I am hiding in the bottle from what I need to address and who I need to be. That's when I think that I realize that moderation probably isn't going to cut it. And I'm using this as an example for many other things, but I'm going to have to start viewing alcohol as poison, that even a little bit of it will kill me in order to actually move forward in my life. This can be applied to overeating. This can be applied to certain ideas of, oh, if I just get through today, then I'll be fine. That's an addiction a lot of people have, just getting through the day. Instead of having a long-term plan, or more importantly, realizing that if you just get through every day, you're just going to get through life, and you're not going to achieve what you need to achieve or what you want to achieve. You're not going to be the best version of yourself and the best version for everyone else on this earth. We have to ask ourselves, what is our poisons? What are our poisons? What's our reasoning behind taking in these poisons? And it's not always substances or alcohol, but sometimes certain habits of responding with anger, of responding with depression and emotional sadness. Sometimes these are, a lot of the time, these are just as poisonous. The substances and alcohol are a little bit more, they feel more real, and they produce something more like a very tangible effect. That doesn't mean that these other things aren't just as poisonous. So, if, for instance, I made a lot of mistakes while I was drinking on alcohol, can I continue to take it in and expect to find a solution in the state that was causing the problem to begin with? That was confining my freedom and confining myself to a lesser potential than I'm capable. As you can tell, recently the alcohol thing has been on my mind, and it's been one of my vices for a long time. And I've decided to just look at myself and reorganize my life based on current need. And I survived and was comfortable with it for a long time, but now that it has started to cause problems outside of myself, it's always a little bit caused that. It's what should have been apparent is far more apparent now. It's harder to quantify that based on, a plurality, everybody's situation. And I can talk about, sometimes I rely on anger or sadness or depression and allow myself to sink into it. But it's something that you have to quantify for yourself. And sometimes half measures aren't enough to keep the structure that is your life up and around you, and housing you as an individual, creating space for your highest potential. At any rate, this has been a video about reorganizing your life. I hope this was interesting. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, shoot them down in the comment section below on YouTube. If you hit that thumbs up down there, it really helps out the channel. If you leave a comment, that also helps out the channel. At any rate, thank you very much for watching, and all of you have a wonderful day.